I'll go ahead and call us to order. We have Jason, thank you for showing up. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had a meeting. So appreciate that. All right. I wasn't here last month, so and I don't have my vice chair's not here. So who's the most senior guy in the room? Would it be you, Don? 4. Well, somebody has to make a motion.
Oh, anybody can make the motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion
That's
to
right.
approve the minutes.
All right.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
No's? Anything? No? Anything? All right. I'd like to introduce our guests here. So if you guys would like to stand up and introduce yourselves again.
I'm Buford Ford. I'm past commander at American Legion, also a senior vice commander at the VFW. I'm on the Liberty Fest committee, and I'm on the board of directors at Oak Cliff Fire Department. Everybody lives out in the district. We're looking for a board member out there.
And I'm Rex Ice, the project officer for this project from the American Legion.
And
Matthew. Got one right here.
oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I'm Craig Dishman. I'm the Parks and Recreation Director for the City of Edmond.
Okay. Well, thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, gentlemen. Mr. Ice has sent over a letter, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to have this sent out to everybody. It was just kind of a correspondence letter to us from the VFW, some of their expressions and stuff about locations and everything like that. So I'll give this to Casey, and then just have Casey send this out since everybody here from the board isn't here and stuff. I'd like to have all the board here and everything. So all right. So and also you want to go ahead and.
Yeah, I know we're not at the fundraising stage yet, but there's a local artist who has made the commitment to donate. This is an original watercolor, and he would give us permission to make lithographs of it if we wanted to sell them as a fundraiser when we get to that point. His name's Arnie Anderson. He teaches at OCU, he teaches at Oakdale. He has done a lot of artwork around. So it's just something, I told him what I was involved with. He goes, well, how's like a piece of art to sell? So I know we're not fundraising stage yet, but it's an option we have available.
Just to let you guys know, the TP Church is being redone.
Hopeful Baptist.
Yeah, Hopeful Baptist. All right, well, I'll let our Parks and Recreational Director kind of,
Yeah, so I think just to kind of catch up, all 17 members of the committee sent in their preferences based upon the finalists that you all worked through and chose last time. Those are in front of you. I also sent those out to you, so I don't think anything's a surprise because I already sent it to you. But those are the numbers from the 2 votes that you took. One, the criteria, which drove your discussion last time and got you to those 3. Rex, there's an extra on the table over there.
Thank you.
And then based upon that, everyone submitted their top 3, and then I scored those the same way that we've scored everything else. Any questions on that scoring? I'm happy to answer any questions based on how that was submitted and if there's any questions related to that. So I invited, based upon that, all of these locations are parks locations. So I invited Craig to come, and I think he can provide a little bit more insight than I've been able to. Also talk a little bit more about the future of these locations, and maybe that will also add some additional
context.
Context, thank you.
There you go.
For the discussion.
But after Craig talks, you go ahead and read that letter that they submitted. That way at least we know what their thoughts are.
Okay.
And it might temper or...
Yeah.
Sure, we'll go over there if you want.
I want to show, well, first of all, I'm Craig. I'm glad to be here. I've been the Parks Director for six years, and I was in Texas for a while before that, so don't hold that against me. But I'm originally from Branson, and my stepdad is at College of the Ozarks in Branson. If you've ever heard of College of the Ozarks, that's the school where the kids have to work their way through school, and so you graduate with no debt, and they don't take any loans, but they have to work 15 hours a week. And they recently made the news because this isn't anything to do with this meeting, in case you heard of it, but they had a contract with Nike for their shirts, and when all this stuff came out about who's the quarterback.
Kaepernick.
Yeah, Kaepernick. They pulled their Nike stuff, and the volleyball team played a couple games in just T-shirts, and there were comments about it's a small school. How can they ever? You know, they're going to hate that they lost a contract with Nike. They have a huge endowment. There's no problem to go out and buy uniforms. Anyway, it was really interesting. If you heard that on the news. But one thing they do have at College of the Ozarks, and I don't have any slides of this.
Craig,
Yeah.
our microphone is on that table.
Okay.
No, just so you know, so every time you touch that
Yeah.
table.
Okay. It messes it up.
Good.
One thing they do have at the college, which I don't have any pictures of, is they have several memorials there. One is the Korean War Memorial. One's called the Missouri Gold Star Families Memorial. It's for families that were impacted by veterans. And then the last one, which is pretty new, is they have the State of Missouri Veterans Memorial, Vietnam Veterans Memorial. And so when you start getting into your looking at concepts or looking at other memorials and stuff, that might be just some pictures you look at online just to kind of get some ideas. But they've been really really well done and obviously well visited there in Branson.
Can you share those links of those?
Yeah, I'll send it to
Casey's?
Casey.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
you guys can look at that. It's pretty easy to find. But I did include a few pictures. If you could pull
Oh, you
those
want to
up.
do the pictures? Okay.
Yeah, just pull up the Indy ones first. I was in Indianapolis. I don't know if anybody's ever been in Indianapolis, but they have the Monument Circle. I sent a picture to Casey and said, hey, we need to do this. It only cost $5 million to build it today. But no, obviously, we can't do $5 million. But if you've ever seen it, it's beautiful. And Indianapolis was really impressive for a conference. But I thought it was kind of neat to maybe dream. I don't think a roundabout will go real well in downtown Edmond. But
How tall did you say this was?
I think it's like 10 stories, maybe.
We could probably see that from Route 66.
Yeah. Anyway, if you're ever in Indianapolis and if you get a chance to go by and see it, it's really pretty, really impactful. The next pictures I just wanted to show, just for your information. I was in Frisco, Texas, a few years ago, and I don't know if anybody's ever seen this memorial. This is what kind of kicked off. I felt like I was one of the ones that kind of initiated all this discussion because we have a splash pad over here off Kelly. Maybe some of y'all played in the water or your grandkids or whatever played in the water. But we went to go check it out and I saw this and I was like, oh my gosh, we need one of these so bad in Edmond. What we have is just not doing correct justice. So I came back, I report to Steve Commons and I came back and told him about my weekend little run down to Frisco. We actually went to IKEA, and that wasn't my idea. He knows who idea that probably was. But we were able to go to the splash pad and see this. And so this really kind of spurred on this. Hold on, that picture.
Oh, sorry.
Go back one.
Which one do you want?
The bricks. The rest of the stuff, we can provide a link, and you can kind of look and see what the history is. The park where this is, I think they built the first phase like in 2004. And then the next phase, like in 2014, and the total park, not the Veterans Memorial area, but the total park was about $4 million. But that could be a lot of dirt work and which eats up a lot of funds. I don't know what the actual cost of the memorial was. I put a call into them, and so hopefully we'll get some information. But one thing I did want to show you, just kind of another side thing, is when you get to developing concepts and I'm sure I'll be kind of a part of that. But this is one thing you really want to avoid is brick pavers, because if you've seen the ones at Stevenson Park, they wear out and they just don't last. And so I'm really going to encourage, if we do have some sort of memorial names or something, that they're vertical and not on the ground. They're really hard to keep up from a maintenance standpoint. And we've tried to do some stuff at Stevenson over the years, even before I was here, and it's just, if you've been over there, you can't even read the names anymore. It's really difficult. But if you'll go one more, and you can just leave it there. This is their pavilion, and behind it is the memorial. And so when you all came up with your list of the Tennis Center, Bickham-Rudkin Park, and Edmond 66 Park, I think your ranking is correct. The issue with Edmond 66 Park out towards Pops, the softball fields, is we want to develop more in the park, and so I understand some of you are all thinking this would be a good place. But one of our issues of developing more out there is we need to see more rooftops going out that way. And because we don't have much out there, we keep an eye on it, you know, if you know what I mean, but there's not a lot of traffic out there to really keep an eye on things and cut down, you know, any vandalism we'd have or that type of stuff. And so that's a part that is kind of in our hip pocket that we want to develop more as Edmond continues to grow out that way. But I just don't think we're at a point to really implement something out there yet. We want to we're going to have to put in more sports fields just because, as you know, Edmond's just growing and we've got a lot more kids playing sports. But we also want to try to develop some, maybe a quote nature park. Not Martin Nature Center, if you've been to that, off the Turnpike is beautiful. That would be awesome to have it. We just don't have that kind of land or that kind of money. But something very small scale, and maybe out there around Arcadia Lake would be a good place to do that. But so I think, unfortunately, that one finished last, and that's probably where I'd rank it as well. So if you did vote for that one, I'm sorry, but that's probably the best choice. The tennis center is the next one, and as you know, that's a joint project with the school district, and we should get bids back, I think, within the next week, about how we had to rebid it. We were about $3 million over. The school district's kind of spearheading that project. I was telling Nathan earlier that the school district can build things a lot quicker than the city can, and so they're kind of spearheading that project. But if you've seen the layout or the land and what's taken up, there's a little part there, kind of a tree grove area with a lot of trees, and we've kind of identified that area as kind of a potential small park pavilion, kind of overflow from tennis, a good place for. There'll be a lot of tennis tournaments, so a good place for people to go and gather underneath the pavilion, kind of in between their matches or schools. Plus, there's just not a lot of room there to kind of work around. We really want to keep as many trees as we can. We have a lot of trees in Edmond, but the more we can have in a park, the better. So I understand kind of some folks thinking with that because it's off 15th Street, it's highly visible, it's a new area. But I think you're kind of pressed about how much room you'd have to do some stuff. And then the last one, which finished first, was Bickham-Rudkin Park, and I think that's a really good location. Casey had mentioned that to me several weeks ago that you all were considering that as one of your sites, and I think that's a good location. If you're familiar with Bickham-Rudkin Park, and we showed that picture of the pavilion. So I just kind of want to keep that in your mind. The house that's at Bickham-Rudkin Park that we converted to a pavilion is starting to deteriorate. Obviously, it wasn't built for a park pavilion, and so it's starting to get exposed underneath to weather conditions, and we're trying to keep ceiling intact and gutters and roof and just siding, everything inside. And we want to put over here, if you can't see this, underneath here is where before I was here, they wanted to put in a restroom facility, and the quote was $150,000, and they thought that was too much. Well, now that's a steal to put in a restroom facility. But again, it would be a small, probably one holer for the men and two holers for the women. I mean, just something we'd have to try to squeeze in there and retrofit in there. And so when this was brought up, I talked to my park supervisor, Gary Johnson. I don't know if some of y'all, Gary's been around for his whole life here. I don't know if some of y'all know him, but we kind of started kicking around the idea of the memorial going in here. That our thought, and obviously that can be changed, but our thought would be that it would be what you see when you're going down 15th Street and to replace, 33rd. Or 33rd Street, to replace the house with the memorial. And we can build a new pavilion. That's why I wanted to show the picture of that pavilion, and do a pavilion that would be complementary to the memorial. Because as you know, when you go to these events, these memorial events or Veterans Day events, you attract a lot of people, and you need a lot of parking. And that parking lot's probably not big enough, but at least that's some parking that you could house that. And so there's a lot of room there. And obviously the whole park, the whole area around there. If you had something around the trail or something we wanted to recreate, so I'm all in favor of this being the location. I think there's a lot of potential there, and
Got a question for you.
good location. Yes.
would we be able to extend or do a new parking lot to come over? Can you scroll?
What do you want?
Just scroll out on the parking lot.
You want?
Kind of over to the
Yeah,
to the west.
Well, look,
Let me get up there. Hold on.
I mean, like,
Work with me.
you know, kind of capture some of this, and so you could extend the parking lot, and then, you know, right here, I mean, if you had an access line, I mean, if we did a pavilion, we would want the pavilion, and, you know, to be symmetric with that, so
Yeah.
instead of an access line.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of room here. This is one thing that we're going to do if you've been a user of the dog park. Right now, you enter off 33rd, well, not off 33rd Street,
Yeah.
but where that faces, and we've always, well, since I've been here, I've always felt like that's really one of these days, Fufu's going to run out in the street and it's going to get hit. And so we've always wanted to make this the main entrance of the dog park.
Okay.
You come into maybe the small dog park and you come over here to the big dog park. We can still have this at the entrance, that's not a problem. But what I'm saying is we might kind of clean this area up a little bit, so this kind of be the main entrance.
Okay.
But there's a lot of parking over here. You know, if we tear down the house, there's nothing says that we can't add more parking up through here and look at that and see how many spots we think we would need. You know, what's the cost to add in more dirt work and level things. You know, there's a lot of room up through here. So yeah, there's potential to add more parking and I mean, you can almost kind of start with a clean slate because there's no bathroom, and we could add more parking if we wanted to. And
There's also, just as a reminder, of this adjacent Whispering Heights Park back here. There's some additional parking if people needed to park right there.
yeah.
And then for the dog park, quite honestly, most people are parking over here to get to the dog park.
Mardell's, yeah, they park over
Because
there.
it's pretty easy to get in and out,
Yeah.
and there's never anybody parked over there for the store.
But we don't have any big plans for Bickham-Rudkin Park. We talked about adding a little play feature behind the house, but that was a maybe $40,000 play piece. So that's, in the grand scheme of playgrounds, that sounds like a lot, but that's not a whole lot. And so I feel like there's a lot of potential there, and I think you know, if that was a recommendation you all went forward with, I think Parks Board, who would go through the approval process, I think they would be excited about that. And I think, this is just my opinion, working with our city council, if staff and the boards that lead up to them are in full support, usually that means they're in full support too. So, but I think there's a lot of potential there. I think that's an exciting location and could really make something significant and nice, and I think that would work out really well. So
Now, is that a spring-fed pond, or is that really a detention pond?
you know what? I would have to be a retention pond in my opinion, because I don't know there's anything that's leading into it. So
Well, I do know there's a pond up north, I mean, and you can see there, it looks like there's a creek bed. sitting
yeah,
north.
there is some
I didn't
drainage.
know-
There is some drainage. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think it's anything too
That
significant.
pond was there long before there was any commercial development.
Yeah,
down there.
yeah. But the house, like I said, is deteriorating, and sooner or later we're going to have to, even if the memorial doesn't go there, we're going to have to figure, are we going to keep trying to improve this house, or are we going to, I mean, it's a great concept, it's really neat, people have liked it, and, but at some point, things don't last forever. So we're going to have to figure out what to do with it at some point. So.
And the city's married to the name of that, right? Bickham-Rudkin?
You know what? That's probably, I couldn't answer that question. That's probably something Steve Murdoch, the city attorney, would have to do some research on. We have Bickham Softball Complex. I don't know who Rudkin is. Is anyone?
Who's the mayor?
The mayor, okay.
Ex-mayor.
So, I mean, I wouldn't want to, I couldn't answer that question if that, but you could, Bickham-Rudkin Memorial, or Bickham-Rudkin Veteran, or so-and-so Memorial at Bickham-Rudkin Park. I mean, there's a lot of options you could do. That'd be something to be good to have council kind of give their thumbs up or ideas with that one. So, any other questions?
What, I know that the Margaret Ann's Boys Trust donate, is there, are they? you know,
That's the
that we're
Arboretum.
down through here, the Arboretum.
Mhm.
It's back here at the back.
Yeah.
So So all this land still is all available. I mean, where's the outline of the park? Does it come back here?
Yeah, it goes all the way
Back
down there to right across from Oklahoma Christian. Yeah, it's right there. Yeah. So there's a lot of room there. Whispering Heights Park is there on the east side there in that neighborhood, which is pretty well used park. It's a nice playground, and we're getting to resurface all of our basketball courts in town. Probably by next spring, we'll probably can't really do that in the winter time, so we'll have to wait a few months. But I think that's a good location. I think that would work really well, and I think we could develop something really nice. So I'd be excited to be a part of this project. So.
Now they're at the business district south of the pond.
Mm-hmm.
Do any of those roads, if you all wanted to put a parking lot there in that grove of trees?
over here by.
Right
None of
there.
those.
Fisher
This
Drive,
one
let's say y'all want.
You know what? I've never been down there to see how that would connect. How that would connect.
Well,
to
I mean, it
all
looks
that.
like it just dead ends.
It
Yeah,
does.
It probably does.
It looks
Yeah.
like you got a creek coming through.
There's probably some drainage
A
there.
little bit. It's small
See
and
through here.
Okay.
And
just
I don't
thought
know-
Another parking lot area, just
Yeah,
so, because
yeah.
that way you give you three.
And I don't know how much that area could be changed, you know, because some funding was from a foundation, and so we'd have to kind of go back and look at that. And
So is that all part of the Arboretum right there too, or is that all?
I don't know where. I think the Arboretum is just in that loop, I
Just
believe.
here.
Yeah,
The
but-
signage for that is right here. This is the bridge. It goes
Yeah.
over this creek. So again, there's a creek that runs through here.
I think we try to keep that portion of the park and the Arboretum as natural as possible. I think there's a lot of potential where the house is to add more parking, to extend. You could extend beyond that loop, kind of in the big loop for a memorial area. I mean, there's a lot of room to work with there. So
You also have the opening to the pond. It's kind of right through here, right
Mhm.
along
Yeah.
that loop.
And we've even talked about if we added a pavilion, you know, kind of a pavilion / staging area or whatever, however we come about. I'm not an architect, but for the memorial, we could add another pavilion somewhere in the park,
like
just
that, you know,
kind of for picnic, for rentals and that type of stuff. And we have several pavilions out at Midge Park that you have to carry your cooler and all your supplies. There's not a parking spot right next to it, so. For you know a good price, people are willing to do that, especially if it was something that you could see the water and fish and that kind of stuff. So,
Does anybody else have any other questions or thoughts?
well, I know Casey has my contact information. I'll obviously send him the link for those ones at the college. But if y'all ever have any questions, you're welcome to call me. I'd be happy to answer them. And I'm excited that we got this task force underway, and we're here to help and support whatever we need. So,
And I also think I remember that from taking my kids down here, there is a buffer between the back fence and kind of where the park is and stuff too.
Yeah.
So
It's a utility easement.
yeah, so a lot of, if there was to be a NIMBY thing over going on around here, because we'd be pushed even more farther that way.
And our parks close at dusk, and I'm assuming we would propose this wouldn't have a bunch of lights on it like a ball field. There might be some security lights or aesthetic type lights. So I think the people in that those houses, they're not going to be affected by any any big lights or anything like that. So I can't imagine them. They live next to a park, so I can't imagine them being too upset with anything. So.
Is the Parks Department charged with maintaining memorials and stuff, or do we need a subcommittee?
No, we maintain the memorials in our. So this would be in a park. This would be an art piece more than likely. So we have the Visual Arts Commission that has a maintenance budget that we maintain all of our art pieces in town. Something like this, which is probably pretty significant. It would probably take a little bit more maintenance. But any of the landscaping, but any of the bronzes that we have in town, we hire a gentleman out of the Tulsa area that comes and he's got to rotation basis that he cleans them, and some have been clean for years when he started several years ago. And so it's made a big difference. And so when it comes to that process, we'd contract that out. But our guys can landscaping and, you know, obviously trash and that kind of stuff. That's their responsibility. So. All right. Well, thank you all for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. As requested, I'll go ahead and read this. Says to the attention of the chairperson, Veterans Memorial Task Force. Dear Sir, this correspondence is written to express our gratitude to the Veterans Memorial Task Force. Your efforts to honor our veterans are deeply appreciated by the members of the American Legion and Veterans of Foreign War. The American Legion and the Veterans of Foreign Wars organization have been long-standing supporters of veteran causes through our community, state, and nation. The American Legion and Veterans of Foreign Wars would like to express our desired site location for the proposed Edmond Veterans Memorial. We desire the memorial be placed in a downtown Edmond location for the following reasons. 1, the city of Edmond has land downtown that can be used for this memorial. This will preclude the cost of procuring land for the memorial. 2, the downtown location would facilitate visitation to the memorial by Edmond residents during events such as Art Festival, UCO Homecoming, Herd on Herd, Liberty Fest, and others. The location is only 1 block away from police headquarters. This would facilitate security, safety around the memorial. 4, the location near downtown will facilitate fundraising for this project. This includes funds from private sources such as downtown merchants and veterans organizations. It would also could include grant opportunities from government sources since the location would be close to US 77 and US 66 highways. Your consideration on this request is deeply appreciated. Thank you for your attention. Signed, Mr. Rice. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And like I said, do you have a copy of this?
No,
I'll give it to
if
you.
he's got an extra, I can take it, or if you
Yeah,
want to.
and so
Scan it and send it to everyone.
Yes, he'll scan that and send it to everybody. But thank you, sir, for that. Okay. So now we're kind of on to point 5, discussions on potential concepts for future comprehensive Veterans Memorial. Does anybody have anything they would like to add?
But I think that item's on there kind of based upon if you come to a conclusion for
Okay.
where you're going to be, because then it's going to be easier to discuss concept based upon what you're working with.
And so I guess I would open the discussion for, we've got the voting here that we did choose this park based on our points and off of out of the 3 locations. Is there anything that anybody wants to discuss at all?
I wouldn't mind asking a question since you wrote the letter, correct, about your perspective? If that's okay, right?
Yeah.
We had talked about the downtown space, maybe limiting our concept, and that's what I'm a little nervous about. Were there conversations amongst your group about limiting that concept with that space? I didn't think our conversations, we didn't feel like it was as dynamic of a place to do what we might envision. I guess we can't go to 5 million though, is what I hear.
I guess you're talking about the Congrove, isn't the problem?
Yeah, maybe like the parking lot across from the library or the other construction yard.
We've got
areas.
We've got this, it's currently a staging area for construction projects, and this, it's in the middle of this parking lot.
And one of the major concerns of this group, and believe me, Stan, so everybody can hear.
Yeah, no problem.
When I took it to the membership and had them vote on it, I'll be honest with you, the vote was like 85% for a downtown location. That's why it was like, the message was clear from my commander to give you guys a letter expressing our desires. And basically what they're saying is a downtown, one of the reasons why we like a downtown location is, again, it goes back to the proximity for all of the festivals, that people can come, see it, recognize it, participate, and see that we do appreciate veterans in our community. And that means a lot to us, of course. In addition to that, like I said, we don't know what kind of budget we're gonna get. And I'll be honest with you, in our organization, fundraising has always been a bit of an issue. And not wanting to step on anybody's toes, but if we keep it downtown, you're close to the two main veterans organizations, and I know we can solicit our groups to come up with some contributions. Now, don't get me wrong, we're not talking millions of dollars, okay? But we're talking like $10,000, those type figures, okay? To facilitate the construction. In addition to that, like I said, I used to work for the state of Oklahoma. I was one of the lead grant writers for the Oklahoma Department of Public Safety. I know for a fact that when you look at the CFDA, Consolidated Federal Domestic Assistance Catalog, when you go to DOT funds, that's where you get a big boost when it comes to grant writing. When you look at that CFDA and you see what kind of money is out there from the Federal Highway Authority, FHWA, DOT, and other grant sources, like the humanities, the endowment for the humanities, okay? Being that close to a U.S. highway gives you that chance to latch on to those funds. You know what I'm saying? So that was one of the things that they were talking about, and that's why a lot of the guys, like I said, the vast majority of the people wanted to see the downtown.
Yeah, I think the proximity for me, just to try to start the conversation, I think the proximity is an excellent argument. My only concern with that is that the scope of what I'm thinking of what I'd like to see, I think what we're talking about is maybe limited more in size there. And so I'm caught between the idea of course, a proximity piece, but then also doing something that I feel like is of the nature of what we've been talking about too. So I just want to throw that out there as a point because I do respect your opinion because I know you've given a lot of thought of that, and I wanted to ask you the question because I think that would be where I would divide my, maybe, or not maybe, I know a lot of other people have opinions on this, but the size of the scope there would be minimal of an impact compared to what I think we can do at Bickham-Rudkin. So I'm caught between putting something that I think is really honoring that versus a proximity that may limit us in that regard. So just want to make that point off the bat because I do appreciate you taking the time to send that to us and communicate that. So just as maybe fodder or food for thought, since you sent that letter to us, I wanted to open up that with that conversation. So
Well, that's always been a concern of mine too, because when you look at downtown Edmond, it's compact, just in general.
Right.
And we've never really talked about what this is going to look like or how big it is. The picture that you showed of that more rotundum type thing, that's kind of what I would envision, where you can kind of roam around in it, or you can't do that downtown.
And the one that we're talking about replacing is pretty small and kind of not immediately impressive as well. And I don't think we want to replace something that's maybe not as grand as we were hoping for.
Right. If you guys would all call the lottery commission, tell them to draw my numbers, I'll take care of all of this. I'll buy a whole block, we'll just wipe it out and start over.
I do want to add the one thing at Frisco that I liked, and obviously we come up with a different design. I'm not saying that has to be the design or anything like it, but one thing I liked is there was a lot of room, so when there's events going on, there's a lot of room for people to stand, bring in chairs. You could kind of tell where there could be a speaker or wherever the main speaker is, and so there's a lot of room to do an event, which is, I really feel like a memorial like this, you're going to have some events where you're going to want to do some, you're going to have a lot of people show up. So
Get rid of the post office. It's the perfect place.
Well, just to keep you guys from going around and around, I think going to the downtown discussion from what's been discussed in your previous meetings, there has been a desire to really look at downtown, yet nobody has been able to say that's the spot because of the limitation of space.
Right.
That's, if you go back and rewatch the videos, that's been the gist of where your conversations have gone.
Right.
I think I'm confident we'll do this right. I kind of see this as being an independent destination, that it's a driver too. I mean, I love the idea of having some stuff together there, but this is something that Edmond can hang its hat on as another independent place that we would see that in. So, just looking at things.
one of the ones I sent over to Casey, I spent a lot of time at was the Veterans, the Soledad Memorial in La Jolla in San Diego, and it sits on top of a hill, and they always do this memorial run, and you run up this massive hill and stuff, and it's got this big cross over it, it's I-5, and you know, like you said, it's it's a destination type. I mean, you go and it's just, you know, and everything. So it is, but it's also knowing that, hey, all the festivals that we have in downtown would be great. So it's, again, we're kind of torn between a couple of them. And
Sorry, I'm trying to find that. I know it's somewhere.
that's you can just type in Soledad.
I don't know what sort of search options.
It's,
they have.
there's a, right there on the left side.
Right there.
Or just, yeah. And this has a lot to what you're talking about. There's no pavers. Everything's all kind of up. Well, and so you come up into the actual, so on the outside of it, and it's kind of a helix. And so as you walk on the sides of it, there's some barriers there, and they have plaques and everything there too. And so, I mean, the elevation, it doesn't give you as good, and I mean, this thing, you can start to see there as it comes up. But yeah, I mean, it overlooks a lot of.
You're probably gonna need to avoid crosses, just so you know.
Well,
There's a history there. There's a history there.
well, don't worry. Back in the day, they're still. I mean, when I left from San Diego in 2002, they were wanting to bring it down.
Political people not want it.
Yeah, and
They should have never
Nice
taken
view
it
of
off
that
the city
blue
flag.
stuff there at the front of the top of the picture.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet.
Yeah, nice view of the ocean.
They
We were on today.
took the chiseled out
Yeah.
that part of the sea.
well, that they've been fighting for tooth and nail forever. But that's, you know, that was just one of the ones that I sent to them. That I spent a lot. They did you would do a run through La Jolla, and you'd go up these hills and stuff, and you make a loop around it, and then come back down to the finish line and everything. So it's kind of a pretty cool thing. And when you're going on I-5 and you're making your way through the canyon and stuff, you can see it right there. Not that we have that or anything. So.
But I think I mean, that's the
Yeah.
vision I have, like, as we're talking about this is, and then, but I'm thinking of this and what we've been tasked to do. Granted, there are some restrictions financially we have to think about, but a really grand site for the city. I mean, and I think we're gonna need space to do that.
And, you know, on this one, kind of the reason why too is there's not a lot of parking. There's parking away from it. So as you can see, like there's some there, but there's more parking down the street. And there's some on-street parking, and there's, last time I remember, there's no facilities there. I mean, there's no restaurant facility there at all. And stuff. Now, they have a proximity to some, you know, restaurants and everything else down the street and stuff, so, but it was just one of the ones that always popped in my head.
Do we need to entertain a motion to vote?
Well, so
or-
basically,
or-
well, here's kind of where you guys are, and I'll throw this out there for you to decide. You can either vote specifically to approve that site now, or you can wait and just do one overall vote at the end, but move forward with using that as your site. Does that make sense? So you don't necessarily have to vote each piece. You can say, hey, this is what we're going to do and move forward with that being an agreement, and then vote all at once at the end. It's up to you guys how you want to handle that.
I like to do this, I mean, this is just my opinion, the second one, because that way we can start to create the blob, the pieces.
So I'd hate to come up with a concept that fits what we're looking at, like Rudkin, Bickham. And then at the end, we decide, well, no, we're gonna go to this place, and then all our
And
concepts.
like you said, oh wait, it is small enough to accommodate this, okay? Plus, I would like to have everybody here. I think that it's an important vote to site selection.
Yep.
And I would love to I'd rather have everybody here and say, okay, I know even if you're sick or something, at least send an email out saying, hey, you know, this is my vote, so everybody can see that stuff.
City council's wanting like a decision by December.
Well, so
or
here's
early January.
let's talk about that, because you guys are getting to that point in this where you need to talk about that. We picked essentially an arbitrary date so that this thing would have a finish line.
An insight.
Right.
So there is no hard and fast, you have to be done December 2nd. We picked that because that we thought, okay, that might be enough time. We can go back and council can amend this to go further if you want. You would not present anything to council any earlier than January, regardless. So you have 2 more scheduled meetings after this, then another one in October and the first part of November. Then we didn't schedule anything beyond that because you're running into Thanksgiving and kind of when that all hits. So at some point, probably at the next meeting, you're going to need to talk about do you meeting frequency.
I think that we, kind of we say no. Let's don't be rushed on it. Let's approach council in January, and because we all know that the holiday times are getting ready to hit, and it's going to be and stuff, and so that might get some time to say, hey, instead of every other week, maybe we'll do every 3 weeks, so we can have some time to absorb and come up with some other ideas, especially if we're going to start moving into actual 3-dimensional concepts. And stuff.
I just think how long it took us to pick a location. Concept should be twice as long.
Yeah.
The good thing is the budget funding conversation probably really doesn't take that long. It's just that's not going to take as much time. That's just going to be a recommendation of these are some opportunities we've identified, because you guys aren't going to be responsible for providing the funding or going out and finding that. Ultimately, City Council will say, we're going to move forward with this. This is how we're going to fund it, and if it involves a grant writing or whatever, that'll all be done at the staff level. You guys won't have to take on.
So is our concept then, okay, we want this, we want these 5 items. Do you all present that to an architect and then they draw it up? I mean,
ask the architects in the room.
You'd put out, I think there'd be you'd have your list of what you're wanting, and then they'd have to, an RFP would be written, a request for proposals, and they would probably put that out to some landscape. It probably won't be an architecture firm, probably more of a landscape architecture firm. And they would put that out, say, hey, and stuff, and then they would send in their qualifications, and then, then that would kind of go through a little bit of a selection process between the city and everything, and then they would select somebody, and then they would kind of, whoever they got selected, then might be able to take our information and kind of piecemeal it all together and say, okay, we're taking your ideas, and we're going to kind of mold it from there into kind of the vision. So I think that's, we're at least providing a little bit of direction for whoever the final design, and then after that they design it and they put it out for bid and then start construction.
Yeah, I don't think your recommendation necessarily has to be down to the everything.
Yeah.
But it's probably
major components.
It needs to include these things, and here's some thoughts of how we think that could be set up, or so
develop the program, I guess, that they would be, that whoever the firm would be, that was what they would follow or would want to have set up.
There would probably be a group going through this process a lot right now. We have several projects, but there'd be a group, probably if a couple of you all in the group and city staff, that would sit down and kind of really research the idea of looking at pictures online of all over the country or the region or Oklahoma or whatever, and even like when we developed the tennis center, we went and looked at a few sites within a couple hour drive, and so that would be part of the process too. Is there some in the metro area or Tulsa or whatever, half-day drive or something? So kind of develop a lot of different ideas, and then visit with those cities or whoever's maintaining those. What works with this memorial? What doesn't work? Or we put brick pavers, don't do that, or we did put in a restroom, make sure you put in a restroom. Just those kind of conversations are always really helpful, asking others what's worked and what hasn't worked. So that would all be part of that program that would take place. So.
Let's see where we are. So if we move on to this. If we want to, let's see where we at on our items.
You were still on number 4. You decided not to.
Yeah, I think it is. Does everybody kind of agree on that we should not say that's the site, we should wait, but kind of start to develop more of our gizmos that'll go there versus picking a site?
Are you doing that thinking that Bickham-Rudkin is
Is
the,
is leading,
the
but
main
again,
side.
yeah, and I think that
Because
that's.
I think that's what your committee has
Yeah.
ultimately said through your voting. I just
Right.
want to make sure that.
Right, but I wanted, if that's the one that we're gonna put our stamp on, then I would kind of like everybody to be here. But as we, again, I think as we develop what we want to see in this memorial thing, if it does get condensed down, then again, does it get washed away in all this room? And it becomes it's bigger, but it's a big monument in a big park, and there's nothing there and stuff. So now we've just created another one, versus do we take that and then condense it down a little bit more and set it on a corner in downtown, and then now people can see it and type of stuff like that. So if everybody's kind of good with that, then we'll move on to the next one.
Don't the architects kind of have to know where it's going to be, so they can kind of work in the environment and size?
Well, it
I'm not an
sounds like to
architect.
me that, so next session, when everybody's here, we'll take a vote. Let's just vote which one we like, let's just go with that. I mean, I think that's,
Right. Yeah.
So at least we can throw out what we'd like to see in our park, I guess, and where we're at now. What features we want.
Yeah, I guess if the features is I think that, I mean, I liked his idea about the pavilion and everything. So I think that for next meeting, if we want to come up with some features that everybody would like to see, I mean, is it a pavilion? Is it a main obelisk type of a thing? Do we want, obviously we're gonna have placards and stuff and everything, but I mean, just some ideas from other parks and everything, and then we can just try to put those together, and then Casey will produce another list and we'll score some more.
Well, again, I think I want to just remind you guys of the council's charge of something unique, something special.
Right.
So there's a little bit of warning there of not to just look at what everybody else has done and
Right.
those sorts of things.
But you can take those concepts and stuff, I mean, and then we can,
it sounds
Mold
like
it.
what we're moving towards is creating a program. in a
Correct,
sense.
yeah,
You know,
I-
what do we want to see on the
Mhm.
site?
I would think
Multiple
that-
pavilions,
yeah.
walking trails,
Flowing water.
sitting lawns.
sir, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna ask, and this is kind of not the forest, but the individual trees. Will soldiers who have died in conflicts be listed by name and when, from Edmond, I mean, and then if so, how far back do you go? I didn't know if it'd just be general or,
So I mean, I would go back, I mean, I would say.
Spanish American Wars where I would have started, because that's after the land run. So that's really, I mean, sure, you probably had Civil War vets that came on the land run to Edmond, or to Oklahoma. But that's what I just was researching all the conflicts basically that had happened. And I cut my cutoff point with Spanish American War in 1898.
so is it, historically, do we know residents of Edmond who died in the Spanish?
And unfortunately, they would have that questions not here, the ones that's in charge of the History Museum.
Yeah,
I'm sure with
Anita's going to
microfilm,
have access to a lot of historical records that will help with
And if
that.
it
I would
takes
say going
sitting
back to
there and
World War
going through
II,
microfiche.
definitely do. Now going back to World War I and Spanish American War, I'm not so sure, but I mean, we could, but I mean,
Edmund's son's been around that.
Edmond's son, but I mean, I think we could also, something like that is we could make could you make an announcement to Edmond's son that says, hey, if you're a great-great-grandfather, you can prove it and stuff, could you, type of things like that.
You're still going to be limited
Okay.
on how many people are going to see that.
Right.
So,
But I mean, I think somehow get that out either social media or whatever, but also put, and so I think that would be good.
But to I think again back to the council charge, maybe that will help your question, Brian, is they also said this is for all veterans, so maybe
Right.
not necessarily just
Sure.
those that died in
Yeah.
action. So you guys will have to decide whether that's
If you'll
piece of
bring
it or
up,
not.
if you'll go back to the one that, the Soledad one real quick, they actually have plaques that are from units.
Right here.
A unit would buy a plaque, so if you go to.
Is that this here?
Yeah, so kind of scroll up a little bit. Scroll. Yeah, up or down, excuse me.
The other up?
Okay, so, I mean,
He's here.
James Stewart has a plaque, right? Somebody bought him one. But like, I mean, if you look, I mean, interceptor squadrons, click on a little bit of these. Yeah, see, these are some different guys that even weren't killed, but their family, and they weren't even from San Diego. But their family said, hey, I'll buy a plaque here.
See, I just think that's a lot of, I mean, yeah, depending on how much space we have. So I could almost see doing some kind of like maybe a large oversized dog tag. Instead of a brick, you write a dog tag, and then you have a place to hang those. And they become, with the wind, they almost come like wind chimes or whatever.
Yeah. Or you can put them up in the trees, and the trees eventually grow around the dog chains and stuff, and they become a part of it.
But, yeah.
But I mean, some of the stuff is this too. I mean, again, as you're starting to think about that.
Did you want here?
Or just go back to here real quick.
Sorry.
I mean, do you have an area for, you know, this is the 45th area, and then this is the Air National Guard, all their stuff. But then you have stuff along this trail that are kind of, so now the whole park itself becomes part of the memorial, not just this thing right there. You get out, you walk through, you come down, whatever you do, and you sit there, and then you're done. Is the whole experience, all of it?
And using the water then gives you a
Correct.
chance to signify your Navy Coast Guard people. I mean, that's what I'd like to see, a park where you have to move through it.
Right,
instead
to
of just
experience
being
it all, right.
stationary.
I'm going to pull something up. This is just for abstract idea. Not do this or this is what you should do.
Picasso?
I'm going to show you this
I would like to see them put
that I
something
think
out into the water.
Yeah.
I think this is probably the level of creative thinking that you probably need to be thinking about. This is in, bear with me. Let me see if I can find it here. I'm sure there's only one. This is it right here.
Yeah.
Are you guys familiar with this one?
Yeah, when the sun's in alignment.
So this is, if you walk up to it, it's a bunch of granite pillars, okay, but it's got these holes, and then down here it's got this U.S. seal, and on 11/11 Veterans Day at 11:11 a.m. the sun shines right through those holes and lights up that seal on the ground.
Wow. Well done.
That's unique.
Right.
That's special, even though it just looks like that. Somebody really thought, hey, how special would this be? And so they have events there on Veterans Day, and it's a big deal when the sun shines through at 11/11, and it perfectly lights up the American seal through all of these different, these five are the different branches of military. So I only show you that to say I think that's the level of what your council is looking for in special. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So they probably don't have to worry about cutting down as many trees and everything.
No, but the downside of this, I've looked at some pictures. If you get a cloudy day,
Yeah.
that's the downside.
No, but yeah, when I was researching, that's special,
But I think that coming to our meeting with, you know, concepts like that, not
here's
that
the
we're
cloudy day.
obviously we're not gonna
steal it.
steal it.
No, you're not going to steal it. That's what I'm saying, not to do that. But I think that's
It's
the
our-
level. That's the level of
Outside the box.
creativity that I think everyone should be thinking about.
I do have, with apologies, I have to give a midterm at 8:15, and since we're at quorum, if I leave before we finish, is that a problem?
You just need to vote to adjourn.
Okay, so I don't have.
So agenda. So let's.
We need to go to the next, we're at 7:58, so we need to go ahead. Determine the agenda for the next meeting. I'd say, if everybody's good with it, we come with some ideas.
Are you going to vote location next
I
meeting?
think, I think we need to vote first and just get that out of the way.
Vote
and then
for,
vote for the site.
okay,
Where
yes,
it's gonna
I'm
be
sorry,
downtown.
yeah, the site.
Okay.
And then,
Site location and concept.
yeah, site location and concepts, that'll be, and then site location concepts, and then probably concepts will go on to probably another meeting around concepts. And then
Now, if we
I think
see something like you want us just to send them to you, so you can forward them out, or should we just make
Yes.
prints ourselves and bring them?
Well, if,
I'm totally fine if you find something that you want everybody to see, since you're limited on discussion time here. If you want to send stuff to me, I'm fine forwarding that out. Just know that you're going to get more emails from me. If you're okay with that,
That's fine.
I'm okay with that.
Everybody good with that?
That will help you guys see more stuff before you get here to the meeting instead of trying to hash through everybody's ideas.
I mean, if everybody's aware that we're gonna be voting for those 3 sites, the 2 downtown and this one, we can take the vote first thing we get here, then we can focus on design.
Yeah.
For the,
Well, and I think with your vote, the way that you're going to word that is somebody's going to make a motion for a site. If it passes, then that's it. We're not going to probably vote for each.
We'll have discussion basically,
Yeah.
it'll just be a vote.
Okay.
So I guess we're voting for closure now on sites.
So,
Closure.
so I think we've got our agenda planned. Is that correct? Okay, we're all good with that one, all right. There's any new business? I don't think so. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second.